Hello and welcome to another week of season 2 of A Weasle, Pickle, and Levi. We are recording live in studio from Christopher Nolan's living room this week. We got Chrissy N in the kitchen. He's making us some sandwiches. He's getting us some drinks. We're excited to be here in Chrissy N's house. Sadly, this week, and some might say this isn't very sad, we do not have Nathan with us, but we have upgraded. Actually, we've upgraded to Sam Landstra, the beautiful, charismatic man himself, the wonderful journalist, the star of Dort's campus. Sam, we are so happy to have you on the podcast with us.
Oh, thanks, Chase. I'm so happy to be here. I listen to you guys every episode at work. It's a blast. I feel very treasured.
We appreciate your listenership, Sam. It's we claim to be big and famous, but anytime we get another person telling us that they love to listen, we our hearts just rocket into the moon, really.
Oh, man.
I agree.
So Sam is a journalism major, right, Sam? Is that the
That's
correct
correct.
title?
I'm
Okay.
journalism major and then English and digital media minors, but journalism.
Okay. Are you one of the few journalism majors at Dort?
Yeah, I think there's, oh man, maybe 4 of us, I think, currently.
Okay.
3 just graduated, so there's not many.
Okay.
It's a small program.
So why journalism, Sam? Why did you choose it? Why should we care about it?
Yeah, well, I kind of, everyone starts out with a major when they start out college, and in some sense, it's just sort of a guess. And I thought, yeah, journalism sounds fun. I like writing, and journalism sounds a little more sustainable than just an English degree. No offense to all my English degrees out there. So I went with it, rolled the dice, and I turned out to really like it. I think it's just a really vital institution in society because it can keep people accountable, and it can give a voice to those who need a voice and who've had their platform taken from them. So I'm really passionate about that, and I like writing and telling other people's stories for them.
Yeah, so at Dort, everything's taught from a Christian perspective. That's what the Dort Speak says. What do you think is different for a Christian journalist?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, for one, I just think it's important for Christians to have a place in all parts of life, and I think that includes journalism. I think a lot of times in media, Christians have kind of shied away from that. Have shied away from being in with culture and having a voice in culture, and sort of kind of having their own things to the side. And in my opinion, I feel like that can be sort of negative because take for example, you look at Hollywood. That's a place where Christians kind of shunned initially, and now there's very few well-made Christian movies. Just a lot of really bad Christian
a lot of
movies.
bad ones.
Because Christian filmmakers were non-existent for the longest time. And journalism, thankfully, it actually had a lot of Christian roots in it, in England and in early America. But I think that a lot of the times you're sort of seeing evangelicals sort of leave that sphere of journalism. And I think it's really important for Christians to maintain, some staying power in that place, because I think, being a Christian is being a truth teller, and being a journalist is being a truth teller. And I think there's so much good overlap in that as well.
That's some really good stuff.
That is.
We can tell you're a journalist because you're thoughtful and you're able to say things in a very, very good way.
Yes.
So how do you distinguish journalism from other just writings, like writing a book? How do you define journalism, really?
Yeah, there's all sorts of writing has its value, but I think what journalism's specific sphere is, it's disseminating information to the public. It's providing people news in a way that tries to exclude bias as much as you can. And you're never going to have perfectly objective news because people are inherently opinionated, and that's just part of being a journalist is recognizing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not quite essay writing, because that's more creative. That has you're putting yourself into the story more and more often. Sometimes it's first person, but journalism, you try to take yourself out of it and just tell other people's stories for them. Take, for example, this summer I did something called the World Journalism Institution Camp. It's a camp that held through Dort with World Magazine, which is a Christian journalism institution. And what me and two other students and the editor-in-chief of World did is we wrote a feature that's going to be in next month's World Magazine issue on the work-faith connection. It's a nonprofit in Houston that helps people with significant gaps in their employment history from, say, incarceration or homelessness, or just they lost their job because of the pandemic. And what work-faith does is they teach people interviewing skills. They teach people how to, do their resume to get hired, all these sorts of things. We attended their online seminar called the Job Search Accelerator. So that's one thing. It's reporting, it's observing people. And then we also did interviews. That's another thing with journalism. It's interfacing with people. It's talking to people, asking questions, having them tell you their story. And then we, put everything together and then basically wrote a profile on that organization, how they help people, how people have been helped by it, how employers have, how their interactions with work-faith graduates have been. So yeah, that's kind of what journalism is. It's writing, but it's a little more, you take kind of yourself out of it. It's a little more objective, a little more third person, and then also takes interviewing and reporting and observation and puts all those things together for people to read and be informed about.
Man, it's really encouraging to hear you talk about journalism, and that Dort is, doing a good job training you, because what you're saying sounds so good, and I'm excited that the world is going to have you as a journalist in it.
Oh, thank you, Chase. I appreciate that. No, I'm really glad that Dort has a journalism program, because of the Christian colleges that I visited while trying to make my college decision, there weren't any other journalism programs. Maybe a minor, or maybe we have a journalism class, but it's part of our English.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Dort was really the only one that had a journalism program.
Calvin didn't even have one?
They have a minor, but
okay.
It's not really that substantial.
There we
So,
go.
Yeah, I'm really thankful that Dort has one, because I think it's really important for Christians to be journalists. Because, you'd be surprised how much how much you interact with a journalist, because if you're on Twitter, you're reading the news. If you're watching the news, there's journalism as an institution is a lot more prevalent in society than we might realize, because we use it through social media a lot of the times. But yeah.
That's sweet. Parks, does anything come to mind for you to ask Sam when he's talking about this stuff, or anything you have to say?
Sam, so my work study involved writing some press releases for Dort. Am I a journalist major because of that?
Parks, I hate to rib on your work study, but that's more public relations. In journalism, journalists and public relations people, they're sort of cousins, and they depend on each other, especially. But public relations writing is it's inherently it's a spin, because you're advocating for a certain institution. For example, what is Dort's publication called? It's not
The Voice.
The Voice.
Yes.
The Voice is public relations publication, whereas the Diamond is journalism publication.
Oh,
The
yes.
Voice is pretty much only going to write positive things about Dort, and that's fine. It's great for an institution to be hey, look at us, look at all these great things. That's totally okay. But what the Diamond is willing to do is they're willing to, take a critical look at Dort as well. It's not purely critical. We're more than happy to praise it. But yeah, that's the difference between public relations, which is basically just trying to uphold a brand, whereas journalism is trying to uphold a people or a population.
Oh, yes. That makes sense.
Sam, I just took a test this summer where I had to do some writing for it, and one of the articles that I had to read was it was two different articles, and one was arguing for people should get their news from blogs and stuff, from bloggers, because there's so many, and information can get updated through comments, and they're not they don't have a particular economic agenda, and so they can go really hard at one story and a niche thing, and without being concerned about, am I fitting this company's monetary or economical agenda? then I had to compare that to some article arguing that no, traditional news sources are where traditional journalism are where people should get their news, because there's a certain like code of ethics that people need to follow, and it's like their job to investigate stories. And I think I'm on the side of like traditional professional journalism is where people should get their news because of that, like the ethics of it. And I don't know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a really fascinating discussion, because especially with social media, really anyone with a smartphone can be a journalist, because you can take pictures, you can easily interview people, and you can easily publish it. I mean, if you're tweeting about something that you're observing firsthand, I mean, in some ways you are a journalist. Like the barrier for entry for journalism is so low, which can be really good, because you see, anyone can have an important contribution to society, and it can have really positive effects. You're seeing the whole thing with all the Black Lives Matter movements. A lot of them wouldn't have happened if people weren't pulling out their smartphones and being like, pointing at this injustice here or that injustice there. And that's important. But at the same time, when everyone has a voice, it's hard to sift through them and be like, this is the important voice, because you can't just look at someone's Twitter profile if they're unverified and just like a blogger. It's hard to know if they're really giving you an honest truth and a more something that is valid and integral. Whereas something like a Washington Post, a New York Times, Wall Street Journal, people are watching them. They can be held accountable because they have, that masthead that says, we'll keep everyone else accountable. Other publications keep us accountable. So I'm with you. Right. I feel like it's important. I think the traditional news route is good, but I mean, there is definitely something to be said for the lower barrier of entry of journalism and how that can be really helpful too. It's a really interesting discussion though. I'm with you.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you go back 50 years and the only way for somebody to like put their opinion out there on something, which opinion isn't as much journalism as what you're defining it, but I guess so. I'm switching topics a little bit, but now, like 50 years ago, you'd have to have like a newspaper or something publish you to get your opinion out there. But now everybody can just say whatever they want online, and that can be a little bit dangerous as well. That's a little different than just telling events, but that's more opinions.
Absolutely. Journalism was definitely less contentious 50 years ago, because you really only had your nightly news telling you, this is what's up. And you couldn't really question it because you didn't know anything else. But now with Twitter and Instagram, there's all sorts of different, subjective realities being presented to you. So it seems that journalism as an institution is so much more biased, because people are finally being given two different, sometimes equal truths, and they have to balance between the two. And I feel like that's kind of a reason why people are a lot less trustful of media now, is because there's such a low barrier of entry of it. There are so much more, alternative realities, however you want to say it, being presented. And now people are kind of having to, sift through it themselves, rather than Walter Cronkite being the only person who tells you how it is, like on CBS.
Yeah. And that doesn't even get into like the advent of AI and algorithms and stuff, like presenting people with what they want to hear on social media and stuff. I mean, you look at the Social Dilemma documentary. I don't know if you've seen that, but just like the way you can be manipulated without even knowing it by these like big media or like Facebook and stuff and their algorithms, and you just have no clue. And so that's a whole nother layer of trying to discern the truth as well. Like, is this just an algorithm showing me what I want to hear? Is this like well-verified information? And so there's like, we have to really develop our sense of like, there's a healthy skepticism that we need to have, and we need to have an ability to like investigate what is true.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more time I spend on Twitter, which is how I get a lot of my news, because I follow a lot of journalists, a lot of publications on there. The more time I spend on Twitter, the better the algorithm is, and the more of an echo chamber it becomes. So it's like a catch-22. The more I'm trying to be informed by spending time on the app, the more it's just giving me what I want to hear. So it's this weird like win-win, lose-lose situation.
Yeah. Well, to transition to something kind of related to journalism, stories and the power of stories. That's my next topic. Us three, we all love stories and reading to an extent and watching movies. And Sam, you like to write journalism, and there's a certain element of like telling someone's story there, and that's really powerful. And you try to be truthful with it, which is different than writing like a novel or something. But why? Like, I love a good story, and so many people do. Why do humans gravitate towards story to tell truth and to like get like you have this maybe made up story or this story of someone else? Like, why can that make such an impact upon us?
Yeah, no, that's so true, man. Like one of the things that often comes up in journalism and digital media class is the saying "show, don't tell,"
Mm-hmm.
and how giving an example of something is so much richer than just telling something with a fact. And for an example from myself with the diamond, back in my freshman year, Walmart had a bunch of layoffs because they discontinued their greeter position,
Okay.
which was sort of national news. And I wanted to see if there was any sort of localized effects at the Sioux Center Walmart. So I went there, and I was a freshman, so I was terrified of interviewing people just random off the street. And I still kind of am. It's really scary. So I walked around Walmart for, I don't know, 10 minutes, pretending like I was shopping, but also looking for people to interview. And then I got too scared and I just walked outside of my car. And I started to drive home, got a car wash, and I was like, you know what, I need to go back. I can do it. And then I finally spotted someone, and it was kind of like a perfect situation because a lot of sort of the story that was coming out of the layoffs were that Walmart hired a lot of people who had disabilities for the greeter positions. Mm-hmm. And then because of the layoffs, a lot of people who would have trouble finding work elsewhere were losing their jobs. Mm-hmm. So I was really hoping to find someone who had a disability, and so I could tell their story from them. And then as Providence would have it, there is a man, Harlan Van Manen was his name. You probably see him when you go to Walmart. He's on the south side self-checkout area. And he was sitting there in his walker, and I just came up to him and introduced myself, said, "Hey, I'm Sam, right for the diamond. I'm wondering if you could, if this whole layoff thing is related to you, if you could have a story from that." And he actually did. He was a greeter, and then Walmart moved him to like a self-checkout assistant. They sort of like created the position for him, so he wouldn't get fired. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has cerebral palsy, so he struggles to move without like a walker or one of those little scooters. And he had been let go at previous jobs because of his disability and sort of unfair, sort of closeted ways that were sort of. I mean, I don't want to say discriminatory, but at least surface value, they seem a little unfair. So it was really cool to talk to him and to just get a sense of his story, a sense of what it means to trying to be employed with a disability, because it's something that I can't sympathize with, but it's something that I want to empathize with. And so being able to hear a story and then to write about it, and then to have other people read about it, and you're like, hey, I mean, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I did have a couple of people come up to me and say, "Hey, thanks for putting a light on this subject," and I just felt really honored to do so. It's one of my favorite stories I've ever written, and it was all the way back from freshman year. But yeah, I could have just written a quick hard news write up. It's just circling back to the half of the point. Sorry for getting so long.
No,
I could have written a simple hard news write up, 300 words. Walmart is laying off their employees and who are the greeter position, including the local Walmart. 5 people are losing their jobs, 2 people are moving to like different jobs in the store. And it would have gotten the news out, and people might have read it, but no one would have cared, and they probably would have forgot about it the next day. But by telling Harlan's story, I'm hopefully highlighting an issue that can cultivate empathy in people, because they have a face to connect to this headline. And so I think that's how story can be so important.
Yeah, it's amazing how stories can there are an avenue for us to get outside of our own world and experience someone else's lives, and hopefully make us better at empathizing with people who are different than us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Parks, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I remember in high school, we read in one of my English classes a book called The Working Poor. And it was such a fascinating book because it was just a ton of stories, personal stories from people who were struggling, like financially, I guess, like building up a life in America, I guess. And it was like, it made discussing so much easier and like more impactful, just because, yeah, they were just personalized stories. So I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, Sam. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Parks, do you write any like stories for your work study?
Not really. I mainly just, in the past, I guess, I have written just press releases of like events, like upcoming events.
Sure.
And sometimes like, I don't know, research that my professors are doing. So, and in that case, like, I reach out to them and ask for quotes, I guess.
Yeah.
But nothing like what you're doing, Sam. So
Hey, maybe bring it up to your boss next time. Say, I want to have a feature press release.
there we go. Yeah.
Marks, I'd love to read like your boss will tell you, I bet she'd be like, all right, write a 300-word press release for this big Sioux Center tables that's coming to Dort or something like that. And then you're going to come back with this like 3,000-word thing. Like, yeah, I just couldn't whittle it down.
Right. It was so funny. As a freshman going into my work study, I did not understand that a press release like did not allow any room for my own fluffy writing style. I really needed to follow the format.
Did you have stuff get shut down because you would add things in it?
No, not really, because they explained stuff to me beforehand.
Okay.
But I just was going in like, sweet, I get to just let my fingers fly.
Dude, I would way rather read what you would let your fingers fly on than a boring press release. But I guess that's not the position.
Yeah, no, I guess not.
It's the same thing for journalism, Parks. I can't tell you how many times I have to cut with editing for the Diamond. I can't tell you how many times I have to cut fancy prose. It sounds good, but it's just not journalistic or
Yeah.
publications.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Last summer, I don't remember where I heard this quote. This is back to more stories, but the quote was something like, a novel is just a philosophy put into words or put into story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can apply to like a film or something too, that through a story, through a novel, through a movie, you are giving a visual representation to a philosophy which has an impact on people, like what the director believes and wants to convince the world of, that is a true philosophy, a true worldview, like that's represented in a story, and that's like really impactful. Like, I can tell you God loves you or something like that, but then you show a big story of the overarching theme of God's love or faithfulness of God or something like in The Hidden Life, which I'm sure we'll get to talking about later in a segment coming up. But like, that's way more powerful than God loves you, like those three words. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so the visual representation of a philosophy, of a worldview, of a truth in a story is just way more impactful. And I think it shows the importance of being a Christian or just being a human and still consuming like media, consuming novels, consuming films and stuff. Like there is purpose in that. It doesn't all have to be mindless garbage.
Mm-hmm. No, that's so true. Like the worst films are the most like obtuse, like not like totally like pull back the curtain and tell you like what they want you to think.
Mm-hmm.
I hope this isn't one of your guys' favorite movies, but you guys seen Facing the Giants?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Sam, that's my number one.
Oh,
That's my
yeah.
favorite film.
very well intentioned, and it's not like it's like an evil film, but just man, it's just so like broad-sided, and it's just blunt about like, if you pray, everything will be okay, and it tells you that like verbatim.
Mm-hmm.
And oh man, like I mean, back to that topic of like Christian filmmakers, that's what I feel like we have as a church like really struggled to recognize as good storytellers is that we don't have to like always be evangelizing in our stories.
Mm-hmm.
You can just tell someone's story and let it evangelize,
Mm-hmm.
on its own. Like trust your audience because they're smart enough to pick things up. You don't have to tell them that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When
There's
it's
something
so
that
obvious.
this really kind of turns viewers off about just really direct and obvious
Yeah.
like dialogue even.
I even had that one summer when I was like binging through Brooklyn Nine-Nine. There's like one episode where it was really heavy, like on police brutality stuff.
I remember that episode, yeah.
And like I'm like, wow, this is like such a different tone from all the rest of the episodes, and it was just really heavy-handed, and I didn't really like it. And I'm not like saying police brutality doesn't happen or we shouldn't advocate that that's a bad thing, but just like the heavy-handed nature of something like that in a show that's like this funny comedy. And I'm not saying it can't have something to say, but just such a switch. It was like really off-putting. And then I went on IMDb and people were kind of saying the same thing. They were like, I didn't like this. Like this was just so heavy-handed and different than from the rest of the episode. So I think Christians can do it, and people in like a secular society can be heavy-handed as well. Like it's both sides.
No, I remember that episode too, and I thought the same thing. Like, great, like a cop show is going to have an episode about police brutality. Like that sounds like a great thing to cover. Like they'd be remiss if they didn't. But then they had like, I feel like it was in the last 10 minutes, they had like this dialogue that was like explaining to the audience what the 15 was.
Yeah.
I was like, you got it. Like you don't need to tell me.
Yeah.
It was a good episode, and then they tried to be like, so this is what it all means. And I'm like, yeah, I understood the first bit. Like you're doing so good. But yeah, just being like deft enough to again just trust your audience because they'll pick it up if they're paying attention.
Yeah, I think that's a good transition now, talking about movies a little bit, to get to our next topic. Top 10 films for each of us. We're all movie guys. We love movies. We got this great app called Letterboxd now. We can share our movies with each other, what we've watched, our reviews. I would encourage all of our listeners to get Letterboxd, to follow Parks and Sam and I. I'll put our usernames in the description of this episode so people can find us on Letterboxd. But it's like that to me. I don't really care for most social media, but this is the social media I'm here for, where I can share like just my thoughts on a movie and look what my friends are watching. Like that's great. So
absolutely,
that's a bit of a preface to this, but so I'm using Letterboxd now because I have my top 10 films listed there. It's a great way to do that.
Wow.
So I'm not sure. I don't know exactly how I want to do this with you guys, but I don't know.
We all list like our 7 through 10, and we all list like our 6 through 4, and then our 1 through 3.
That sounds great.
Yes. Okay. Can I preface this with, this was so hard for me. if we had like I don't know, honorable mentions list, it would be like 50 movies for me, probably.
Put a couple honorable mentions on there, Parks. It's okay.
Okay.
It's so difficult. I mean, there's so much, like there's so many movies, and there's millions of crappy ones, but there's still a lot of really good ones. And we've all seen a fair amount. We've all seen over 200 movies in our lives. Like there's a lot to pick from to get 10 down, you know. Sam, since you're the guest, you run through your 10 through 7. We could maybe on these earlier ones we don't spend a ton of time chatting through, and we can save it for the later ones. But run through them.
Okay, first some honorable mentions because I feel bad leaving these darlings out. So honorable mention to The Social Network, Ex Machina, and Cars. I love Cars, man.
Oh yes.
The first 10 minutes I can quote pretty much word for word.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Me and Eli Dykstra, man, we love that movie.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anyways, for number 10, I saw this last spring and summer during quarantine. Is when I really started getting into film. I had like watching movies and would watch your occasional video essay, probably on some Chris Nolan film. But I really started getting into it last spring, So yeah, this is one I saw last spring. Taxi Driver.
Mm.
It's a older Martin
Mhm.
Scorsese film, and there's a lot of spin-offs from it, like The Joker.
Yep.
is a
Yeah,
Taxi
right.
Driver spin-off. And then something that's a little higher up on the list is another Taxi Driver spin-off. I'll get to that later though. Number 9, I have How to Train Your Dragon, the first one.
Nice.
That whole trilogy is so good. It's my favorite animated series, favorite animated movie. In the third one, I cried like a baby. Like children were looking at me like I was frightening them because they'd never seen what was a 19-year-old just sob openly in a theater like that. So that was a very cathartic and in touch with my feelings experience. But I just love that movie, How to Train Your Dragon. Number 8, my favorite comedy, Hot Rod.
Nice. Yes. I haven't seen that. I know. What's the Brooklyn Nine-Nine guy? What's his
Andy Samberg.
Andy Samberg. There we go. I know he's in. I have not seen it. It's on my watch list.
It's so funny, man. That might be the movie I've seen perhaps the most in my life. It's just a real easy, fun watch. I think I first watched it in middle school, so I've had it for a long time. But it's just so funny, man. It's like It's like an '80s style comedy. It's really funny, but it wasn't made in the '80s. It was made.
Definitely have to give that a watch.
Yeah, and then for number 7, another movie I saw last summer. This is the Taxi Driver spinoff, First Reformed.
Oh yes.
Man, that movie like deeply affected me, and I think about it still all the time. It's about a pastor who meets an environmental activist, and then that interaction or that relationship between them two kind of forces the pastor to spiral out of control. It is just a beautifully written movie. Paul Schrader, the same person who wrote Taxi Driver, he wrote that as well.
He's a Calvin grad, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. No way.
I'm pretty sure he's a Calvin grad.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Calvin grad or Calvin dropout, but he went to Calvin.
Sure. Yeah, First Reformed is incredible. It's very dark and quite despairing. Like, especially during last summer when there was a lot of, doom and despair. It might not have been the best movie for my mental health, but I certainly connected with it.
Yeah.
It is profoundly impactful. I really, really enjoy it. So if you're feeling like you can handle something that might make you question the trajectory of humanity as we know it, I would really suggest watching First Reformed because it's really, really good.
Yeah, that had one of the strangest endings I've ever seen. It's definitely more of it's more of an artsy film. It's not like the wider just normal American probably wouldn't enjoy it very much.
Yeah, it's definitely more out there, which is being a film snob that I am, I loved it. I ate it up, but the ending is. It won't leave you satisfied. I mean, it left me satisfied, but I'm weird like that. So.
Yeah. There's a certain one of the quotes of a review. I read some reviews after that movie because it was just so like crazy. I'm like, I need something to help me understand this. And one of the reviews talked about like despair being one of the most selfish like indulgences you have of like just knowing of feeling yourself to be completely lost and like reveling in it. And I just thought that, wow, like that's so powerful. Like to just despair like that, being a selfish thing is something I never really thought of.
Yeah, man. And just how it balances despair and hope hand in hand like that. It's just so good.
Yeah. No.
So that was your 10 through 7, right, Sam?
Yes, that is.
All right, Parks. Give her a whirl. You can throw some honorable mentions out if you'd like.
Some honorable mentions. I'll just list 4 I have here. I had The Prestige is an honorable mention.
Christopher Nolan in the kitchen. He likes that. I just heard him yell, yeah. Why isn't that up higher?
Sorry, Chrissy. I have some others if you're The Prestige, Inception is an honorable mention on this. Prisoners and Shutter Island.
Oh, Prisoners is so good, dude.
I know, those are really.
When did you see it, Parks?
When did I see which one?
Prisoners.
That was
man.
freshman year, second semester. You saw it with me for the first time, right, Parks?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was like honestly one of my first like crime thrillers I'd ever seen, and I was just blown away. Oh my God.
I did
Crazy.
awake that night. Holy cow! I watched it like midnight too. Oh my word.
Yeah, it's a real.
Were you alone, Sam?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I watched it alone.
You watched it alone. Okay. At midnight.
Over Christmas break at midnight. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do things to you.
Man, dude. I
People-
mean, it's phenomenal, but it's intense.
Yeah, people think it's really predictable. I did not predict it at all.
Mm-mm.
That's one of the. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Number 10, I have Captain Phillips on here.
Is your dad stars in it?
My dad stars in it as Tom Hanks. No.
Dude, what is it with Tom Hanks just having the worst travel experiences ever?
I know.
Poor guy.
He could not travel worth a lick. Nope. Yeah, I don't know why. I just think that's my favorite Tom Hanks movie for some reason. I think he acts quite well in that. Number 9, I have Silence, which is a Martin Scorsese film about it just is a Catholic priest that traveled to Japan.
It was in the 1600s, right? Or 1500s.
Yeah. And they are persecuted quite badly. So
have you seen that one, Sam?
I haven't, no.
That you got to put that on your list, dude. That one's powerful. You'll love it.
Is
And
it on
it's-
any streaming services?
What's that?
Is it on any streaming services?
I haven't checked.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And it's just real. I think it's really well shot too. I think it looks really beautiful.
Like it's almost a Christian, like it's basically a Christian movie, and it's from Scorsese, and it's sweet. It's really good.
Yeah. Number 8, I have The Prince of Egypt. This is my favorite animated film. I love this. I love the soundtrack to this film. Hans Zimmer, my man, does a really nice job with this Prince of Egypt film. And then number 7, I have 1917 on here, which is a pretty recent film. I think that's the most. Actually, that's not true. But yes, 1917 was my favorite film of 2019. I really liked it.
1917 is great. Yeah, favorite war is it for your favorite war film, Parks?
Yes, it is. I think so. Yeah, which people might be mad at because of some other good war films, but I think it. I don't know. I think some of my liking of that film is from just being surprised by it. Like I didn't think it was going to be that good, and I really was surprised when I saw it in the theater. Good theatrical experience too. Yeah.
It is. I mean, it's such a movie, like a movie theater movie. Because I mean, this. I'm not saying anything special here, but man, that cinematography. Both in the fact that it's one take, or seeming to be one take.
Yeah.
And the fact that it holds both a beautiful countryside and just hellish images of war in the same shot.
Right.
So wow.
And like it's a really rare World War I film. Like there aren't.
I'm a big fan of the World War I films.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been really gimmicky, but they did it very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, I'll move to me. I'll say a couple of honorable mentions. A Star is Born, Good Will Hunting, To Kill a Mockingbird, No Country for Old Men, and Hostiles. They'd make my top 15, but not my top 10.
Those are good.
Yeah, I'll start number 10. Ad Astra. I only have seen this once, so making my top 10 is maybe a little questionable. But my one-time experience was with Nathan and Parks alone in the theater at like 9:00 in Orange City one night. And we just had a literal blast watching it, talking about the physics of what's going on screen. And then honestly, this story is so beautiful and like has such a beautiful theme of redemption with Brad Pitt's character in space and coming back home with his wife and or I don't ex-wife maybe, but I loved it. It was very moving.
Um,
Then number 9, The Shawshank Redemption, classic classic movie, probably in a lot of people's top tens. Number 8, 12 Angry Men. I It's so simple but so good. Oh my goodness!
it is.
Have you
Yeah.
seen it, Sam?
Yeah, we watched it for like my AP Gov class in high school.
Oh really? Yeah. They did so much with literally just one room and 12 men. It was so good.
It's such good characterization for all of it. Oh my word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a classic. Yeah.
and it like watching it just makes you sweat because of how hot those guys are in that room.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then number 7, Million Dollar Baby, Clint Eastwood film. Oh my word! Like, talk about getting rocked to the core with emotions. Such a good, easily my favorite boxing movie, and I had no idea what it was about going into it. And I would encourage everybody who hasn't seen it to not know anything about it and then watch it. You'll be moved. Have you seen it, Sam?
I haven't, no, but I don't want to ask you.
So good.
I loved it too, Chase. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of those I could watch over and over again just because I love the story and I love the scenes and I love the lines. Yeah, that could be a whole nother topic. What makes a movie rewatchable? But we won't go into that right now. All right, Sam. Now for your 6 through 4, right?
6 through 4. Yeah. Oh man, these are some loves of my life. Number 6, continuing in the line of movies I watched last summer. My favorite science fiction movie is Arrival.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Directed by Denis Villeneuve.
Mhm.
I would probably say he's my favorite director.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll with that.
I'm gonna say I literally, until you just said that now, had no idea how to pronounce his name. So definitely would have said Dennis Villeneuve.
Me too.
I said that for the longest time, and then I saw some YouTube video, and I was like, "Oh, there we go. That's how you say it."
Dune is coming out, Sam. Are you?
Oh, I'm so excited, man! It's gonna
Here we
be so
go.
good. At least it looks good from the trailers.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, Arrival is incredible. Amy Adams, my girl, one of my favorite actresses, is just
Yeah.
amazing in it.
Is Jeremy Renner in that one? I can't remember.
Yes, and okay, I don't like Jeremy Renner, and he kills it. So you know it's a good movie if your least favorite actors are good in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's just a classic Denis movie in terms of like just the payoff at the end is just
Mhm.
incredible. I can't really explain it too much because
Mhm.
yeah, it's one of those movies where like linear progression in the plotline is really important, and it does it in a way that's so clever but isn't like too hard to decipher. It's not like
Mhm.
Tenet where you're just confused the whole movie.
Mhm.
Even though you're having a fun time, it just makes no sense. You can sort of track an Arrival in a way that when the payoff does come, it just blows your mind in the most satisfying way.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's number 6. Number 5 is Lady Bird. It's one of my maybe my go-to comfort movie.
I have literally no idea about that movie, so maybe you should explain it a little bit.
Sure. It's a 2017 movie directed by Greta Gerwig. She's a pretty new filmmaker. She also directed Little Women.
Okay.
It's sort of a coming of age story about a girl, Lady Bird, from Sacramento, California, and how she's trying to graduate her senior year of high school. I mean, very typical like setup in terms of coming of age movie, but it's very warm. The dialogue is really heartfelt and touching. And the editing is phenomenal. Like it's so funny and comedic
Mhm.
too. I watched it last summer at a very, I don't know, important time. You know, sometimes a movie comes along, and you just watch it at the right time, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Lady Bird was just one of those movies that came along at the right time for me, and I've continued to like it since I watched it one more time. I've only watched it twice, but you know, I only watched it for the first time like a year ago. But
Mhm.
yeah, just one of those movies that I just really treasure. So yeah, I would recommend it. It's on Netflix, I think. So
Okay, sweet.
and it's also by my favorite production company, A24.
Oh yes,
Really a basic film boy by saying that.
very very arts, much more artsy stuff, right?
Yeah.
Did they do First Reform?
Yeah, they also did First Reform.
Okay.
Yep. And then number 4, speaking of movies that came into your life at the very right time, Into the Wild. I don't think a movie has impacted me in a way that Into the Wild has. And honestly, I think I can say it changed my life because I think about it and the movie's philosophy all the time. It's about, it's a true story about a boy, Christopher McCandless, who basically gives up all his belongings after graduating from college and drives out west and kind of hitchhikes and walks his way to Alaska. The movie sort of follows his journey towards Alaska and his time in Alaska. Have either of you guys seen it?
I haven't seen this
Okay.
one. It's on my list,
either.
but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't
There's
seen
also a book. The book is great
Yep.
too. But I think the movie is actually better. 'Cause
Okay.
It's a little more. The book is a little more documentarian, and the movie is more storytelling.
Okay.
The book is great too, but yeah, there's a lot of like transcendentalist poet influences. Like you read them all the time, and just what the movie kind of says about, what does it mean, to have pain, to have pain in your life, and how do you reconcile with it? Do you run away from it? It has a lot to say about what the value of family is, what the value of friendship is, because Christopher kind of forsakes all of that because he can only see the bad things in it. But then, it's sort of about his progression in terms of finding the necessity in a relationship. It was profoundly impactful for me. I watched it my junior year of high school at sort of like one of those times where you just kind of need something to reorient you in life. Yeah, I can only watch it about once every year and a half because it just kind of wrecks me. And I want it to like keep that sense of awe. I don't want to have those diminishing returns if I watch it. Yeah, Into the Wild, number 4.
Was that number 4?
Yeah, it was number 4.
Okay. All right. Parks, you're up.
Okay. Is this number 6?
Yes.
4, right?
6
Okay.
through 4.
My number 6 movie is The Dark Knight Rises. Chrissy, did you hear that? Okay. Chrissy approves. People really don't. People hate on this movie a lot because of, I guess, plot holes in it. But I love Batman movies. Batman's my favorite superhero. I can tell. I feel like he has the most villains with depth and best movies made about him. So, or maybe, but and then
and if that Bane isn't just the best thing in the world, man.
Oh, Bane sounds great. Tom Hardy did so good.
He did.
Fun.
Yeah.
The darkness is your ally.
What would break
So good, man.
Okay, number 5 is Chitty Bang Bang.
No way. Are you serious? That's your favorite movie?
It's so good. It's so good, man. This is the greatest musical, if you call it a musical. I think it is a musical ever made. I'm sorry.
I loved it when I was young, and I love making jokes about it with you and singing it with you. It's so fun.
I laugh so hard at Dick Van Dyke. He's so funny. I love him so much.
Sam, you like musicals, right? You're a musical guy.
Yeah,
you're a theater guy more than musical, right?
Yeah, but I can appreciate a good musical. I do like a good musical.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see in my top 3, perhaps.
Okay, all right. All right.
Good. At number 4, we have Hostiles. Is number 4 for me.
Beautiful, dude.
Oh my word!
I haven't seen it.
it's about like a ranger, right? Who escorts like a Native American chief to his homeland
It's
to
based
bury him.
it's based in
But
like the late 1800s in the plains, and there's this army ranger, army captain, who he finally captured this Native American chief, and he had him in prison, but then he's tasked with bringing him home to let him die, because to like improve relations with the Native American tribes or something like that. And he just has to deal with this like horrible prejudice inside of him against Native Americans and take this guy home and to die and to be buried. It's the score. It's Max Richter, who is far and away my favorite film composer film score composer.
So good.
What? Yeah, he did Ad Astra. And it's just, there's a scene in there that I was about to watch. Say, like there's a 2-minute clip that I could just watch it every day. It's so beautiful.
I was about to say, like, honestly, I think my favorite scene in cinema is in this film.
Yeah.
And I won't say what it is, but it's of Christian Bale. He does a very nice job. Nice character development, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
He's the lead role?
Yeah, he's the lead role.
Oh, Christian Bale's amazing.
Yeah, I would just second what Chase said. Max Richter is unbelievable what he does with film scores. It's incredible.
On like Spotify, last year they did the like you're in the 0.5% of their listenership or whatever. Like Max Richter was my guy for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
That's Parks. You had 2 Christian Bale movies right in a row there, right?
Yes. Not Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, Christian Bale was in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Yeah, he was Dick Van Dyke's friend.
All right. I think I'll do my 6 through 1, and so then we can let Sam finish it out.
Good idea.
I'll do my 6 through 1, and then Parks do his 3 through 1. Then we'll let Sam cap it off.
Perfect.
Okay. My number 6 is The Pianist. A beautiful World War II Holocaust film about a Jewish piano player. Gorgeous, honestly, and a true story. So, and then number 5, The Dark Knight, which I'm sure many people in America, it's their one of their favorite films. Has an insanely high rating on IMDb. Great movie. That for me is the movie I think I've seen the most times in my life. I love it. Heath Ledger is awesome. The score from Hans Zimmer is great. There's just a ton of quotable lines in it. It's a ton of fun. It's like, I think it's the first thing that Parks and I really bonded over. It's like why we became such good friends is that movie.
Yeah.
We watched it the night of the polar vortex, where we didn't have school. We watched it in the classroom building at like 2 a.m. and it was so much fun.
Oh my, that was incredible.
It was a great night. And then number 4 is Inglourious Bastards. Quentin Tarantino, Brad Pitt. I love that movie. It is so funny. Children should not watch it, of course, but it's so good. And Christoph Waltz is, oh my word, I love that guy. Oh my God. Parks and I, we love quoting parts of that movie, but just honestly, it gets at a sense of like a desire for justice and shows it on screen, and you're like, yes, Hitler, take that. It's so good. So that's number 4. Have you seen that, Sam?
I haven't. No, my Quentin Tarantino is very limited. I've seen Django Unchained, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to see more though.
I think Inglourious Bastards. Sorry, Parks, for my crassness. It's spelled with an E instead of an A, so it's not swearing. Okay,
that's good. I've only seen 2 Tarantino films too.
Yeah, that's because of me. Don't tell your mom, Parks.
Yeah, I won't.
I thought it was funny how you spelled out Pissed.
Oh, good. Thank
Yep, that's Parks.
you, Sam. Yes.
Don't ever change parts.
Thank you so much.
All right, my number 3 is Moneyball, another Brad Pitt movie. I just can just watch that movie. Like it's so good, and I'm not doing a great job at describing this stuff, but I can just watch this one. I can just watch over and over. It's baseball. It's the A's in 2003 when they went on a really long win streak. They're horrible. Like they have very small budget compared to the New York Yankees, and it's about how do you win as a baseball team with such a low budget when these other teams have $100 million budgets and you're stuck with 30 million. And I just the scenes within it and the lines and I could just watch Brad Pitt walk around and talk to people. I could just do that. He's a beautiful man in a completely analytical way. I say that. And then number 2 for me is A Hidden Life. Terrence Malick, who's a Christian filmmaker, very artsy guy. But this is Christian filmmaking done well. Like, it's gorgeous. The score is James Newton Howard, right, Parks?
Mm-hmm.
It's so good, and probably the most God-glorifying film experience I've ever had was watching that movie. Really impactful from a worldview perspective, and a beautiful picture of marriage and family life and steadfastness to God amidst horrible evil. It's Terrence Malick's like one of his few like linear narrative films that's like you can follow it as a normal human being, which makes me like it a lot more. I've seen his Tree of Life, which I did not like because I didn't understand it, but this A Hidden Life, all Christians should watch it. It's so good. And then my last one, my top film is Inception. Shout out to Chris Yen, who's bringing us some sandwiches right now. But
they're great. They're great, by the way.
They're great sandwiches. Thank you.
They're really good.
But I love Inception. It's so much fun.
Yeah,
I'm sure you guys do as well as film Christopher Nolan fans. So there's my top 10.
That's really good, Chase. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Number 3 on my list is this one's a classic for me. Chase, you probably know this guy. I love The Nativity Story. 2006. Oscar Isaac, his best film ever.
I don't have a word about that.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought you would, Sam.
I'm sure you will, Sam, actually. Yeah. He plays Joseph. Yes.
I guess he probably could play a baby.
Right. Yeah. And so we've all said which film we've seen the most. This is my film I've seen the most. I've seen this film like maybe 40 times in my life. Like every Christmas, and just the music. That film to me is just encompasses the feelings of Christmas. I love the music in that film. I don't even know who the composer is. I don't even know who directed that film, but I love that movie so much.
Marks, so you're Prince of Egypt, you're Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and then now the Nativity Story or the Nativity Scene, whichever it is.
No, it's Story. Yes.
Okay, those are so out of like left field for me to be in a top 10 films list. It's so funny, and it's very descriptive of you. Like those that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet like no one knows what those films are. Yeah. Number 2 for me is Dark Knight. Yeah, probably for the same reasons you like it, Chase and Sam, I guess. But yeah, that is my favorite superhero film. I would call it crime thriller. So I think it's one of my favorite crime thrillers too. Because that's kind of one of the only films where I felt like there was a lot at stake and that the villain was actually like tough to beat, as in they don't beat him really. So
Yeah.
and then number one is A Hidden Life for me. Really, yeah, that just is the peak of filmmaking in my mind. So
How many times have you watched it now, Parks?
I've seen it 3 times, I think.
And we just saw it for the first time in like November of last year, 2020. So
Yeah, right. Really good script too. Like I think the reason why I'm okay with seeing like a 3-hour movie 3 times, I glean new things from the script.
Yeah,
It's quite well done. Yeah.
it's almost devotional. Like it's so.
Yeah.
Man, I gotta see it then now.
You got it, dude.
Yeah.
All right, give us this is what we've all been waiting for, Sam. Our listeners are literally drooling right now to hear you, Sam Landstra, tell us your 3 favorite films.
I got kind of a basic top 3. I don't know if you'll be that impressed.
That's okay.
Number 3 is I am so happy when watching this movie, and that is La La Land.
La La Land.
Ooh, yeah.
So many boxes. I mean, with an infectious like score and infectious songs, like you can just like boost a movie's like value so much for me. I love it. It fulfills all my theater kid joys and desires. If you can play any of the songs on piano, I Want to Marry You. Probably. It's very attractive to me. But yeah, La La Land, man. Just a beautiful story. Damien Chazelle is a great filmmaker. Yeah, I like all of his movies, but this one's easily my favorite.
What else? What else has he done?
Whiplash. What you guys?
Oh my word, dude! Why is that not on my list? Oh my word!
Whiplash is good.
Whiplash and also First Man.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's so good at telling like the story. Well, one, jazz. He's very good at jazz. And then 2, just like the tortured artist or like the very driven protagonist. In First Man and Whiplash and La La Land, there's all sorts of like a relentless pursuit of your dreams and like what that means for relationships, what that means for like your mental health, all those types of things. He just does it so well and so touchingly. Yeah, La La Land is number 3 for me. This is bad radio, but I have a painting of it.
Oh, dude,
oh, that's sweet.
Did you do that? Did you paint?
I did. Yeah, it took so long, dude. Oh my god.
Oh, that looks great, listeners. I'm sorry. Sam, can you
attach a photo?
Can you send me a picture of that? I'll make that the cover art for this episode.
Oh sure. Oh man.
There we go.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want this exposure for my.
Well, you're getting it, baby. I mean, if you're comfortable, send me a picture.
I understand about it.
Yeah.
Number 2, I don't know if you guys have been shocked by my lack of Chris Nolan love in my top 10, but I'm going to pay it off right here. Number 2 is The Dark Knight. Kind of slash the whole trilogy. I probably have Batman Begins in my top 10, but I didn't want it to clutter up the other spots.
Yeah.
So
right.
The Dark Knight trilogy, but really The Dark Knight is number 2.
This shows why we're all such good friends. I mean,
yes, honestly.
Yeah.
I can pretty much credit The Dark Knight for making me want a digital media minor, for making me really get into film. I first saw it. I didn't see it when it came out. I saw it my senior year of high school, so I was really late. But as I saw it, I just fell in love with that trilogy. Freshman year, when I didn't have a ton of friends, because you're a freshman and no one has a ton of friends. All I did was just sit in my room and watch video essays on The Dark Knight. Like I've watched every single Dark Knight video essay. So yeah, I really like this movie.
That's awesome,
man. It's a very long movie, but you're just like, okay, I think it's gonna end now, and then it doesn't, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so good.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I think it's gonna end now, but then it doesn't, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Like the 4th act that comes out of nowhere is just incredible.
It's so good. And like even certain shots are like just picturesque. Like the shot of Heath Ledger sticking his head out of the police car,
Yeah.
and like the sound design during that is just so good. Oh man.
And just that opening, that like
Mhm.
single electric guitar extended riff, you know,
Mhm.
like I just get so giddy when that comes on. Like, oh man.
It's like, all right, buckle up. We're in for a ride here.
Yes.
And that sometimes if I'm on like Netflix, I'll sometimes see it on like my, watch again thing, and I'll just watch the first scene, and I'll
Yeah.
watch it. But that first scene is so good, man.
Yeah.
All right, for my number one, you guys might see this coming. And honestly, it's so hard to pick a number one, but this has probably been at least my number one for the past year since I've seen it, is Inside Llewyn Davis.
Yep.
There we go.
Man, it's just, it hits in all the right ways. It's a pretty indie film. It's by the Coen brothers, though. So there's some pretty recognizable filmmakers. It's about a singer from 1960s Greenwich Village, folk singer, and just he's a struggling artist. And the movie just kind of follows his struggles. There's not a huge like complex plot. Honestly, there's not even a ton of character development. It's just kind of a bit of a contemplation on, what it means to struggle, what it means to have a dream and aspiration, but not just being able to achieve it. And it's sort of a bit of a commentary on depression.
It's really depressing.
Yeah, it's really sad. Like it's truly like kind of dismal, but it's one of those movies where if you're happy, it's definitely going to take you down a couple of notches. But if you're sad, it just sort of wraps you in a warm blanket, and it's some sort of like sense of like togetherness that you feel in it. I saw it last summer, and like for everyone else, last summer there were a lot of tough parts of last summer, and so it came at an important time for me. And the soundtrack is really good. Oscar Isaac, Parks. This is Oscar Isaac's best movie, in my opinion.
Oscar Isaac is an incredible actor. I like him.
Man. He kills it. Great singer too. Like you wouldn't expect it, but he's really great. This isn't a musical movie, but there are a impressive number of musical numbers, including Fare Thee Well, which is just a really great song. I really like it. But my parents got me the Criterion copy.
Oh, dude.
And it was filmed on maybe a 35 millimeter. Like it's a very grainy film.
Yeah, it's film.
The Criterion copy, it just shines, man. It is beautiful. So yeah, Inside Llewyn Davis is probably, it's always going to be changing and fluctuating, but for the past year, Inside Llewyn Davis has probably been my favorite film, and I anticipate it will be for a while. So yeah,
I want to see that. Yeah, I haven't seen that film.
Anyone to watch it? It's on Prime, I think.
Parks, you need to see it. You would, I think you would love it. It's really good.
Really
Sweet.
Yeah. Sam, thank you so much. It has been a literal blast to have you on this podcast to talk about movies and journalism and storytelling with you. You're a wise guy. You're very well said. I'm thankful for your friendship, and I'm thankful that you listen and that you wanted to be on with us. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I'm thankful that you guys could have me on. Like ever since I started listening, I was like, oh, maybe let me on someday. Maybe I'll get this,
I mean, how could we not? It's our honor, not yours. I mean,
so I'm excited that I got the chance to talk to you guys, and just as friends to get to catch up in the summer. So yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate being able to talk about like two of my favorite things, journalism and movies. So
yeah.
Yes, I second everything Chase said, Sam. So, yes.
Thank you, Parks.
Well, boys, we have done what we always do on this podcast. We have written, we have journaled, we have told stories, we have filmed.
And until next time.